again. Welcome to Looking at Social Justice. I'm Jim Grant, and it's usually my privilege to introduce different people that you have never met before. But today I have the distinct privilege of reminding you of someone you saw last week. If you didn't see or hear from Luis Huerta-Silva, that is a program you're going to want to catch. It's all about the Voter Choice Act and a little mention about the upcoming mayoral candidate forum. But today, Luis Huerta-Silva from Leadership Council is here again, and we're going to talk much, much more about that Fresno for All event on the 13th of February, coming up right soon. So Luis, why don't you reprise in some form an introduction for those that don't know you at all and didn't catch you in your previous program?
Definitely. Thank you again for having me, Jim. I really do appreciate you and everyone involved in the run-up show. As mentioned, you mentioned earlier, I do work with Leadership Council for Justice and Accountability. We're a nonprofit organization that focuses on environmental justice and racial justice and the interlaps between both issues. And so we advocate for issues on ensuring residents have clean water access. Air quality is also an issue that we advocate on, and then as well as healthy land use. And again, overall issues that affect the everyday lives of our residents here in the San Joaquin Valley and East Coachella Valleys, of course. And a little bit about me, as I mentioned in the previous session, dealing a lot with the actual electoral system. Now is talking about a little bit more how do we play it into action, or what other ways that we could involve ourselves in the civic life of the United States. Prior to my work here in Fresno, I worked around a lot of immigrant voter engagement, anything from the processes of helping families learn about the green card process through family-based immigration, to even the citizenship process, organizing these workshops for 10, 20, hundreds of soon-to-be citizens or green card holders ready for the citizenship application process, and guiding them through it, and ultimately being there for the citizenship ceremonies where we register them to vote and engage them in the civic life of the United States that they now have access to.
One thing to compare, you were in the third largest city in the United States, the great city of Chicago.
Yes, I was.
You're now in the fifth largest city in California, Fresno. Could you help us see the similarities that we might be missing, just not aware of the similarity in what we need to do with our community, and also the differences that you're facing in a major metropolitan area and a rural, beautiful part of the state of California? What's the similarity and difference?
I mean, first off, the difference, it's snowing over there right now, and it's not here in Fresno. But more in depth is definitely understanding that while there's different dynamics in politics and overall culture of the city, of the areas, there's an underlying factor where communities of color have continued to be not invested in. Understanding that there's people in power positions that are not necessarily responsive to the needs of the residents, whether they've been vocalized or whether they've been obvious to those representatives from the get-go.
Getting on to the topic we wanted to spend a little bit of time on today, reprise something about the Voter Choice Act. What's great about it is things have happened since the other day, and you actually have some little aids to share with us.
Definitely. So last week, as I mentioned in the podcast, they will be receiving a couple mailers. If you are correctly registered to vote, so that means your voter registration is up to date with your current address, you should have received, if you opted in from the county, a county voter information guide. So this provides sample ballots based on the party, your party preference that you're registered with, and even if you are registered no party preference, how that could look like, or what positions would be on your ballot if you opted in to have those those candidates on your ballot. And then I would argue, just slightly more important, is your official vote by mail ballot, which should have arrived or was mailed out this last Monday, and some even received it later last week.
Wow.
From January 31st. And so be on the lookout if you haven't already checked your mail in Fresno County for these items.
And then tell us exactly what is the possibility that we could be in these days before the election making sure we do vote before the primary on March 3rd. What ways can we do this?
So if you have opened up the envelope where your ballot is located, you'll see that there's a no postage required envelope in which you'll be submitting your ballot. It's, I think, a rosy color, and it will ask for your signature outside of the envelope. So ensure that you fill out everything necessary within that envelope. And that could be submitted a ballot drop box, which those are currently open, and there are 43 throughout Fresno County. And there's usually multiple per zip code. You could also visit, as of February 22nd, you could begin visiting 10 voter centers throughout Fresno County. And for future elections, there will be 10 vote centers available at least 11 days before the election.
I've heard, I think from Peggy herself, that they're in very interesting places. Like all of a sudden you find out, oh, hey, we could do it right there. Can you give us an idea of how easy this is going to be to make sure we don't do anything like what happened in Iowa?
Oh, yes, definitely. So these are paper ballots, first and foremost. But second is it's as convenient as dropping off your mail at a drop box. The idea was to put them in convenient locations where you could drive up, drop it. These are 800 plus pound secured boxes, so it'll definitely take some incredible strength, some incredible Hulk strength to do any damage to them.
We're very optimistic, right, that this is going to be the best primary turnout, and that we're going to have people knowing this is not only important but possible.
Exactly. I mean, there's approximately 450,000 registered voters in Fresno County. And that's just the numbers from 2018. I could only imagine they've increased since then, right?
Yeah.
So all these individuals will be receiving that vote by mail ballot, where before only about 250,000 turned out to vote and cast that ballot.
Oh, man.
That's a difference of 200,000 voters that we could make. And that's more than enough to win for any sort of race, whether it's for candidates or a policy position.
One thing we want to make clear on this program and all programs we do at the diocese, we are not like we are in New England, where we used to say vote early, vote often, or that we used to say vote for the Kennedy of your choice. We are nonpartisan. We are not about a person. We are about issues.
Exactly.
So just know that the urgency of voting is not in a particular direction, but it's your civic responsibility. And this is what Leadership Council is all about.
Yes.
Civic engagement, not being corralled to a party issue.
Exactly, and it's understanding that at the end of the day, at least within the United States, with a particular situation, right, with a two-party system. And so with what we're afforded as voters in these primary season is really the opportunity to vote for candidates or policies that are much more attuned to the values that we have as individuals. And at the end of the day, we have that ability, right, to exercise that and guide how our general election is going to look.
Awesome. Second topic, main issue for today,
Yes.
brand new stuff. We didn't talk much about it. Fresno for All. Can you
Yes.
introduce us? The first thing you wanted to talk about is the coalition that it is, the event that we're going to have on the 13th of February. Let's begin with the rudimentary first things we need to know. What do we need to know most of all, Luis?
Well, I think first of all, I have to give a big shout out to the coalition, to Jakarta Movement, Council on American Islamic Relations. Leadership Council is obviously involved. Faith in the Valley, ACLU of Northern California, and Fresno. Yes, CARE, and Fresno Building Healthy Communities. This big coalition of organizations has already been doing groundwork, right? Grassroots advocacy. And we came together and saw this opportunity, this incredible opportunity to engage Fresnans with a new voting system and around issues that have been prioritized by our communities.
So, we're going to be meeting from 6 to 8 at St. James Cathedral.
Correct.
Can you tell us why and how it turned out that the Episcopal Cathedral
Episcopal, yes.
wound up being able to be the center?
Mm-hmm.
It's got something to do, I think, with the community they house at that beautiful cathedral.
Yes. Actually, one of our partner organizations, Faith in the Valley, is based out of there. So it's been a location where a lot of social justice initiatives have been decided on, gathered around, and ultimately, it's a home base for part of the population that we work with. And so ultimately, we want to have this in a location where people know and are comfortable sharing their issues, asking the questions, the difficult questions, right, that come with elections.
Speaking of the questions, there was a survey prepared.
Yes.
That went, I guess, in two directions. Definitely went to the candidates so that they will be knowing that there's been a prioritization of what we want to discuss on that day, according to the way that the citizenry also responds. So help us know something about that survey, which is available online,
Right.
which I do have a copy of here. Can you walk us through the survey, Luis?
Definitely. Well, there's two important surveys actually. One guided very much the other. The second one, which I'll allude to later, the candidates one, again will be alluded to later. The first one, again, we are community-based organizations that prioritize the needs of our residents. And so with this community priorities survey, what we did was identify within issue areas that we work in, what are the priorities that Fresnans have. And so of those issue areas, we have housing. We also have healthy land use and clean air issues of transportation, and ultimately issues around community justice as it relates to policing and as it relates to immigration.
And in this survey, those responding are asked on a scale of 1 to 5 to even prioritize the 5 of those.
Right.
So that we'll understand for a given person in priority rank, is it housing? Is it transportation? Is it things of the environment? Is it things of the economy? Or is it basic community justice? Is there any sort of a result of any of this surveying yet, or is that yet to be discovered?
Yes, thus far, many of the priorities, the two top priorities that have been identified by Fresnans have been around housing, specifically issues of homelessness, and how do we address in a just way, the issues that our homeless population faces. Second issue was community justice in general, and both as it relates to policing and as it relates to immigrant justice. Again, these are issues that affect greatly our Central Valley.
Oh, yeah.
But ultimately, all issues, we approached it with an understanding that we as individuals live intersectional lives where some of us are affected by housing and immigration and gender issues, right? We're not one-faceted beings. And so with that, within each of these issues, again, we relate to what is it that Fresnans needed or what is it that Fresnans want to advocate for. And so you'll see, for example, within issues of transportation, how are we moving to, for example, green methods of transportation? How are we increasing accessibility for Fresnans that say a bus only comes once every 2 hours or 1 hour sometimes, right? How do we increase that accessibility to ensure they have the ability to really decide their future for themselves. Having that accessibility is a very key component of that.
Inside the 5 priorities, there's even a way that you're asked to further delineate particular aspects. So, for example, if we stay with housing, which was one of your 2 diagnosed top priorities,
Right.
across the state, across the country, homelessness is the diagnosed crisis.
Right.
Of course, the whole environment is the crisis,
Yes.
but housing is a personification of where it hits people most. So there's 4 main ones. I wonder if you want to help us know why these came up and how it is that like Leadership Council is working on all these things, and maybe some of your partners. You've got affordable housing being one, home ownership assistance, tenant protections, and homelessness.
Yes.
So where have people been prioritizing those 4? And did you want to mention what's being done already? Because we're talking about an election for the mayor, but whether there's a mayor or no mayor, we still have homelessness.
Exactly.
So what's going on?
Yes. So within these issues, specifically, particular to Fresno, it's important to recognize that, you know, we are one of the largest cities here in California, but then I think more to this specific issue is where rent, it's the second highest increasing rent in the state of California, only second to
Wow.
Oakland. So that means
Wow.
while wages are remaining relatively stagnant, the cost of living is increasing at an alarming rate. And so the current mayor plus the subsequent mayors will be needing to address this issue of overall affordability of housing. Again, there's honestly an abhorrent amount of vacant properties that could be utilized in some sort of fashion, again, in conjunction with owners, with the county government, where individuals don't have to be homeless. You know, this doesn't have to be a problem. And there's various solutions, and so we're advocating under these issues for our next mayor to prioritize this, again, based on the needs of Fresnans.
Let's move a little bit from the issues to the forum,
Yes.
and that would mean mentioning what's going to happen that night from 6
Yes.
to 8 on the 13th. You've got certain candidates going to be there.
Yes.
Can you introduce us to them and tell us the response you're getting from those that have been invited, and what is the hope of your coalition?
Yes. First off, we are a nonprofit 501c3 organization, so we focus on policy decisions of the candidates or policy positions. And so all candidates have been invited formally, both to the initially scheduled forum and now to the rescheduled forum for Thursday, February 13th. So all the candidates have been briefed on the issues that we will be addressing through a candidate questionnaire. And so of the candidates, again, we've had open dialogue and open invitation to them, and thus far we've had 3 candidates confirmed for our February 13th forum. And this includes Jans, this includes Reverend Harris, and lastly, Richard Renteria.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And that would mean those 3 will be able to talk to them, raise issues with them, hear their responses. What happened to anyone else that was invited?
Ultimately, as programmers or coordinators of forums, we do set deadlines for the candidates, and so we opened up the invitation with a certain time frame, and even made took affirmative actions to ensure that they received the invitation. So we called their offices multiple times, we emailed multiple times to ensure that they received the invitation to our forum. And unfortunately, not all candidates have responded, but ultimately it's important to understand that this is an opportunity for you as a candidate to address hundreds of Fresnans on issues that they prioritize. I
did read in the paper, I guess, that it was when it was going to be on the 30th of January, there was a scheduling issue with Jerry Dyer. But then I guess you were able to re-invite for the 13th of February.
Yes.
Any response, or was there already a response given about the 30th already?
Yes, so we had confirmed with candidates back on October 17th of 2019, sorry. We got both verbal and written confirmation of attendance of candidates like Mr. Dyer. And so there was a rescindment of that invitation, and ultimately why that was rescinded, I think, is a great question for him as a candidate and any candidate that would rescind their attendance for any forum.
Anything else about the, I guess, how the evening is going to move? Like,
Yes.
how do you use up your 2 hours?
Oh, we have definitely a lot of issues to talk about, right? Again, many issues affect our fellow Fresnans, but ultimately is understanding that there needs to be a community or education piece. We'll be briefly reviewing the Voters' Choice Act and what to look forward with that. Again, keeping in mind that there is still 9 days between the forum and the date in which the vote centers are open. And beyond that is opening it up to the candidates based on the priorities that Fresnans have identified through the survey, which there's still an opportunity to fill out. You could visit bit.ly /Fresno survey, all in lowercase. And here, if you say don't have an opportunity to attend the forum, you could include a question that you have for the candidates.
Here we see that there's not only your name, but we have that link, and then FresnoForAll.org. What
Yes.
will they find at FresnoForAll.org?
Well, currently you could find an announcement for our mayoral forum, definitely, and also a map of vote centers. So for your convenience, which one is closest to you, and upon review, we will be posting also the candidates' responses to our Fresno for All mayoral candidate questionnaire. And this is where we ask candidates more specific issues on where they stand, say with addressing homelessness in Fresno, addressing immigrant justice in Fresno, mobility and transportation, of course, as well.
And as the information has been collected, it's there, it's posted already.
Correct. So we will be seeing
good.
in the next couple days an upload of all the candidates' responses to the questionnaire, or lack thereof an answer, lack of an answer to this questionnaire.
Oh, this is so good to know, Luis, that it's not only that the event itself, as usual, we don't want to put all our eggs in a moment.
Exactly.
It's like there's a stuff you can do online, there's things you can do in person, and there's ways to be in touch with the organizers, the 6 coalition members. What more? We have 4 minutes only. Mm-hmm. What more did we need to cover, Luis, before we have people already going to the website and looking at all this?
Ultimately, we're here as community-based organizations to address and hold accountable all our elected officials to the needs of those that they represent. And so if they do have questions, if they would like to get involved, we encourage them to get involved. As our co-director, Veronica Garibay, said, this is an opportunity to vote, for us to vote on our values, right, as Fresnans, and vote on the issues that are really important to us. Like here in the Central Valley, for example, water is a tremendous issue that we cannot put to the side. My colleague Natalie had mentioned also that water access is ultimately a very key component of what she's a PhD candidate. And so she's doing a thesis on related to water issues in rural communities and overall access. Yes, she's definitely a boss. She is a great person, and the research and overall significance of her of her candidacy for PhD, I think is very, I think I mean, again, it highlights the issues that many times rural areas don't get to address because we're many times, forgotten.
One issue that I'm very interested in is this community justice.
Yes.
1, 2, 3, 6 things. Say something about them at the end. Community-led violence prevention strategies, the next police chief selection process, community policing, protecting vulnerable immigrants, domestic violence prevention, and restoration and healing. These are on the survey.
Correct.
These have been responded to. In about a minute, what can you tell us, Luis?
Ultimately, within those issues is an understanding that with community justice, with policing, there's a need of accountability to our communities of color that have experienced tragedies, have experienced violence in many forms, right? Because we need to understand that violence can come not only from within, but from external factors. And so I think it's important within this issue to understand that there's proven ways in which, through data, violence prevention strategies that have longer term, more beneficial beneficial effects that haven't necessarily been considered. And so this is an opportunity for the new candidate to really consider these alternatives that have shown to produce, again, more effective results that involve the communities directly affected.
Which I'll bring up a program we did a while back, Advanced Peace, went down in flames, but what it was exactly an alternative presented to the city council with no much support from the police department, and we want you to know who are watching and listening, this forum, tell us when it is, where it is, and why we should be there in 20 seconds.
In 20 seconds, it'll be at St. James Cathedral on Thursday, February 13th on Cedar and Dakota, 6 p.m.
Luis, can't thank you enough for your second program. Nobody has done 2 programs so quickly. When you do your third, you'll be tied with our friend Zach Dara. Till next time, God bless.